Hi, welcome to Illinois Violet. My name is Ray, and welcome to a video that I have been wanting to make for a hot minute, and I know it's kind of late, and I'm sorry. Part of it was it took a while for me to do the stuff, and the other part was that I was really lazy, and so I apologize for that, but here we go anyway. So today we are going to be comparing the 2011 Sailor Moon manga with the new Naoko Takeuchi edition. So here's the deal. I'm gonna try not to show like too much of the story, but I am gonna show frames and like parts of pages that I'm referring to. If you don't want to see that for any reason, that's your warning. Like that's the type of video this is gonna be. Okay? Okay. Information on the two books. So for those of you who don't know, the 2011 edition, which is this bad boy right here, has 12 volumes, and it is like the go-to English translation, I guess I would say. I don't know if it's the only one, but I know that this is like the most popular one. This was released by Kodansha Comics. And then the Naoko Takeuchi edition is being released this year. This one just came out in like April or May. I believe this is going to have 10 editions because it is going to be thicker than the 2011. The Naoko Takeuchi edition has an updated translation. It's actually the same translation with like a few minor like tweaks as the Eternal edition. I'm gonna link the Kodansha site in the description that kind of explains what the new stuff is. Basically, this is supposed to be the Eternal edition, readable, holdable version, because the Eternal edition, if you don't know, was like pretty big and kind of bulky, and I don't have those because I didn't like how big they were really. And so we're going to be comparing these two. You can tell that the new one is thicker than the old one. That is because the 2011 edition is going to have acts 1 through 6 and the 2022 is going to have acts 1 through 7. We will only be covering acts 1 through 6 because that is how many the original book has. So now is when we're going to go into the kind of page by page overview. I basically just took differences in translation that either stood out to me or I thought could change the reading experience. That's kind of the rationale I went with. I'm not going to show you every single translation change because that's just nuts. And I will be stating the page numbers of each book because eventually they will change. So one of the things that I noticed first off is that in the front of the 2011 edition, I'll actually show you here. I don't think I'm gonna actually have pictures for this one. At the front of the 2011 editions, they have like these cool little color page posters and stuff. And in the front of this new edition, the Naoko Takeuchi edition, there's just like the one. It's a different poster, which is kind of cool, but there's just the one and then it goes right into it. So there's that. So page 7 in both of the books, the context here is that Usagi wakes up late for school. In the 2011 edition, she calls her mom a dummy. And in the 2022, she doesn't do that. On page 8 in both books, and it's kind of throughout the books, but I really noticed it on page 8, Luna says nya in the 2011 edition, which is like a Japanese way to say meow. In the 2022 edition, Luna just says meow. And I mean, take with that what you will. I like nya. Some of you might care, some of you may not. I don't know. Page 11 in both books, the context here is Usagi is at school. We're meeting Umino for the first time, and in the 2011 edition, he's defined as creepy, and in 2022, they just use annoying. Also on page 11 in both books, Umino repeats just a game in the 2011 edition, and it's really weird. I always thought that was like an error in typing or in print, and in the 2022 edition he doesn't do that and it sounds a lot more natural, so that's really nice. Page 18 in both books, Usagi is talking about Sailor V, and in 2011 edition she says, "I'll bet it feels good to take down the bad guys." And in 2022 edition, I was kind of laughing because what she says in this translation is, "And I bet beating up bad guys is good stress relief." And I was like, Kodansha, what are you suggesting here? Like in the first one, it's like, yeah, I bet it feels good to like get the bad guys. And in the second one, it's like, I bet punching people feels nice and it's good stress relief. So page 2022 in both editions, Usagi gets locked out of her house basically for getting a bad grade. She starts yelling, and Shingo, her little brother, in the 2011 edition says she's going to bother the neighbors. And in the 2022 edition, I thought it sounded way more American. He says she's disturbing the peace. On page 42, Usagi is talking about Tuxedo Mask. She compares him to the famous thief Lupin. And I was like, okay, I just kind of let it flow by like in the past and everything. But in the 2022 edition, she says, Lupin the Gentleman Thief. When I tell you, this made so much more sense to me now. Like, I never had understood that. I read the 2022, I was like, oh, now that makes sense. I get what she's saying. Page 49 in 2011 and page 51 in the 2022 edition. There's a part where we're in Usagi's house and she's got like thought bubbles all through the page. But at some point she goes and walks into her room and says she's hungry, and then the thought bubble pops up again, and instead of relating it to the other thought bubbles, it just looks like she says, or I should be, and I'm like, what, you should be hungry? And then in the 2022, the thought bubble says, I used to be normal, and it's way easier to like connect it to the other thought bubbles that way. The other way just seems kind of confusing in context. Okay, page 93 in the 2011 edition and 95 in the 2022 edition, when Rei does her attack or is trying to expel the demon, in the 2011 edition, her attack is in English and she says demon be exorcised or whatever. And in the 2022 edition, she gets to use the Japanese attack, which I thought was pretty cool. I just liked that a lot better. I thought that was neat. Page 94 in the 2011 edition and page 96 in 2022. In the 2011, Usagi refers to Rei as a Miko, and I never really understood what that meant. But in the 2022, she says Rei is a Shinto priestess, which makes way more sense to me because, like, I knew she was a Shinto priestess, but I didn't know that that's what a Miko was, if that makes sense. Or like, that's what she was trying to say. Page 110 or 112 in the 2011 edition. So Sailor Moon is in like a different dimension, and they're trying to talk to her. And Luna is with Amy, Sailor Mercury, and she says, you gave them the communicators, which doesn't make any sense because it makes it sound like Amy gave them the communicators, but Luna did. It seems wrong. But in the 2022 edition, Luna says, I gave you those communicators, which is correct. Page 121 or 123. In the 2011 edition, Nephrite says, damn it. And in 2022, I don't know why he doesn't get to say damn it, but I just wanted to put that in here. Page 128 or 132. In the 2011, Naru is talking to Usagi about going to the embassy, and she says it's close to Sendai. I'm going to try this. Sendai Zakashita. And that's all they say, which is fine, but like doesn't. If you're an American reader, you don't really know what that means. But in the 2022 edition, she continues to say that that's practically next door, which gives you much more context if you're not from the area or you don't know anything really about Tokyo. So that's really helpful because when I was reading it before, I just kind of went by it and was like, okay, I guess that's cool. It's near a place that must be important or something. But it's close by, and that makes more sense now. Page 166 or 172. So we're getting another like thought bubble thing from Usagi, and the way she talks about Luna in the 2011 edition, she just like says she worries or whatever, but in the 2022 edition, it's kind of aggressive or mean, or at least that's the way I was reading it. Like because like seeing them side by side, I was like, oh, it really sounds like she does not like Luna in the 2022 edition. But in the 2011, it just sounds like Luna's like a kind of like a parent. Page 183 or 189. So in both editions, Usagi likes to go to the arcade. Like that's one of her things, right? In the 2011 edition, she calls the arcade worker Oni-san. And Oni-san is a formal name in Japanese for like big brother. And in the 2022 edition, she just calls him arcade guy, which feels really weird. I don't get it. It just doesn't sound as nice. Like at least to me in the 2011 edition, it was nice that he had some kind of like title or some kind of name. It's not really that big of a deal. It was just like weird because like in the 2011 edition, it felt like she had a closer relationship to him, kind of like they were friends more than like I don't know how to explain it. It's just kind of interesting, and if you care, you care. If you don't, you don't. Page 187 or 193. Jupiter does get to say damn it in both editions, unlike Nephrite. Page 203 or 211. So in this one, Luna wakes up late, basically, and is going into like the kitchen or whatever, and Usagi's mom says something about her being up late and that Usagi's off to school already. And in the 2011 edition, Luna says this kind of thing does happen now and again. And in the 2022 edition, she says it happens okay. So here's the thing, right? So in the 2011 edition, it feels like it's showing character growth for Usagi in that she's becoming more responsible. She's getting up on her own, and Luna's not having to like wake her up all the time to get up for school, or her mom isn't, or whatever, right? And in 2022, because Luna just says, it happens okay, it just feels like she overslept. Like when it happens now and again, it's like, oh, okay, so Usagi once in a while just gets up on her own and goes to school, is kind of how that feels in the book, like when you're reading it. And in the 2022, it just sounds like, oh, she overslept, and Usagi probably did too. Like it loses the depth to me that I had thought was there. I could have been mistaken, but like, you know what I mean? Okay, page 226 or 234. So this part to me was a huge like turnoff. I really like, this was one of the ones that I was like, oh, this is bad. So Tuxedo Mask in the 2011 edition at least sounds like he still cares about Usagi, or just cares about the thing that he did. In the 2022 edition, he just sounds whiny and entitled and childish. Like, I just need this. I need you to do this. I can't. And it's like, it like reads very different than the 2011 edition. It does not read as well, and to me it's like a turnoff for Tuxedo Mask, because you're supposed to, like, he's supposed to kind of be a jerk, but you're supposed to see like him, especially when he's like a Tuxedo Mask, as like the nice-ish kind of guy he actually is. Basically, like, he teases Usagi, we get that. But when he's like Tuxedo Mask and he's trying to like do all this other stuff, he's like he cares about people, and I don't know, it makes him sound like very, like I said, whiny and kind of childish, and it's like, wow, you kind of suck. Like, you know, and that really sucks, because at least, like I said, in the 2011 one, you don't really get that feeling. You get like a help, I need you vibe, because I really screwed up. So yeah, that kind of sucks. Okay, that was all of them. So, final thoughts. So the new book does provide some clarity, which is nice, like with Rei being a Shinto priestess, with the Lupin reference, that's really nice. But I also feel sometimes like it loses some nuance. It feels like some of the translation is a little too general. Like in the 2011 edition, I feel like they use like more specific words, if that makes sense. Like, it feels like the 2011 had a larger vocabulary than 2022 does. I'm not sure if that's like an age thing, like they thought maybe like for kids reading it, like, I'm not sure like what the deal is with that, but it was kind of weird. It's like if the 2022 edition said, we have to find that book of spells, and if like 2011 said, we have to find the magic tome. It's kind of like that. Like it like, yeah, it still works in both, but 2011 gives you a better vibe of like what they're going for. To me, I think so. If the 2022, since it's an updated translation, if it's actually better, then that's fine. I'm just telling you how I saw it and how I feel, okay? Additionally, some parts of the new book, to some extent, I feel like some of the translation changes actually affect the way you feel the characters grow in the new one. Like, some of the character development gets a little lost, I think, but could just be me. Basically, all be all, they're both fine. I do like the old one better. Could be because I'm an old fart, but basically, after reviewing this new one, I don't think that if you get these, it's gonna like ruin the story for you. Obviously, I've only looked at the first one. I don't know how the rest of them are going to go. I am not doing this for every volume. I'm not going to buy the rest because to me, the updated translation doesn't really do anything. So it's just this one. I mean, if you are thinking about, if you have the 2011 and you're thinking that you want both, if you are on the fence, I don't know if you're going to care. You can use the differences to really decide. I can't tell you one way or another. I think some people will appreciate the newer updated translation and some people won't. It's how things go. And if you have neither and you don't know which one to get, if you can get your hands on the 2011 and you want those, I mean, that's great. But like I said, it won't like ruin, it doesn't seem like after reviewing this, the first one, that it'll like ruin the story. So if you just want to get these or whatever, like that's fine. If you already have the Eternal Edition, if you don't care about how big they are, I don't know that I would get this one because it's the same book, just smaller, with like a few tweaks, I think. Yeah, none of it should really ruin anything except for the tuxedo mask part. That was my least favorite. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess the new one just seems a little more aggressive for some reason. All right, so that was the 2011 versus the 2022 Sailor Moon manga, first book. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helped. If you've read either or both and have thoughts on like the translations, let me know. And you know, you can put that stuff in the comments if you want. I got an Instagram, I got an email account. But yeah, I'm gonna go because the air is only getting louder for some reason, and also I'm hungry. So happy reading, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.